Today, our topic is about mp3. What is mp3? mp3 stands for MPEG-1, MPEG-2, audio layer 3, and it's standard for audio compression that makes any music file smaller with little or no loss of sound quality. mp3 is part of MPEG, an acronym of Motion Pictures Expert Group, a family of standards for displaying video and audio using lossy compression. The history of mp3. In early 1970s, Professor Dieter Seitzer of Erlangen-Nuremberg University in Germany begins wrestling with the problem of pressing music over phone lines. Initially, refused of research money to pursue the goal, he establishes a group of technicians and scientists interested in audio coding research to tackle the problem. Who is Professor Dieter Seitzer? Dieter Seitzer studied and graduated in 1952 at the Technical University of Stuttgart. Was an electrical specialist. In 1962, he operated in the IBM Zurich Research Laboratory in Rochlikon, Switzerland. In 1970, he was appointed to professor and a new chairman of technical electronics at the Friedrich Alexander University of Erlangen. In 1979, Professor Seitzer's teams developed a first digital signal processor capable of audio compression. During subsequent development, a student of Professor Seitzer, Karl-Heinz Brandenburg, developed and enhanced basic principles of perceptual audio coding, exploiting the hearing properties of the human ear as described in psychoacoustics. Under Seitzer's guidance, Brandenburg and the team continuously developed a number of coding algorithms. Who is Karl-Heinz Brandenburg? A German electrical engineer and mathematician. He is also known for his elementary work in the field of audio coding, the perception, measurement, the wave field synthesis, and psychoacoustics. Since 2000, he is a professor of electronic media technology at the Technical University Yemanu. 1987, a research alliance is formed between Erlangen-Nuremberg University and the Fraunhofer Institute for Integrated Circuits within the framework of the European Union-funded Eureka Project EU-147 for Digital Audio Broadcasting, or DAB. Led by Fraunhofer's Professor Heinz Gerhauser, the joint research project takes an important next step with the LC-ATC, or Low Complexity Adaptive Transform Coding algorithm as the basis for its research. The joint venture began building a work real-time codec using multiple digital signal processors, or DSPs. The hardware system, based on multiple DSP modules and a number of audio and data I/O interface cards, was developed from scratch by a team of scientists that included Harald Popp and Ernst Eberlein. Until now, LCATC existed only as a simulation on mini-computers and could be tested only with very limited amount of audio material. A few audio experts. Due to the high computation time needed, the real-time codec would enable testing of LCATC under real-world conditions and allow for significant additional algorithmic optimizations. In 1989, Brandenburg finishes his doctoral thesis on the OCF, or Optimum Coding in the Frequency Domain algorithm, described by Fraunhofer as exhibiting many of characteristics of the eventual mp3 coder, including a high-frequency resolution filter bank, non-uniform quantization, Huffman coding, and side information structure. Fraunhofer contends that the OCF coder is considered a breakthrough at the time and is a precursor of mp3. OCF scans and removes sound below or above the threshold for human hearing. The software part of the real-time system for OCF was mainly driven by Bernhard Grill under the lead of Gerhauser. In 1991, incorporating contributions by Hanover University, AT&T, and Thomson, the Fraunhofer team improved the OCF algorithm, which yields a powerful new audio codec called ASPEC, or Adaptive Spectral Perceptual Entropy Coding. ASPEC was proposed for the forthcoming MPEG audio standard, which started in 1988. After formal tests, MPEG encouraged Musicam and Aspect to merge to create a family of three coding schemes, where layer I was a low complexity variant of Musicam, layer 2 was a optimized version of Musicam, and layer 3 was mainly based on Aspect. As proof of concept, Fraunhofer manufactured and sold a small number of the Aspect studio equipment, 19-inch racks, to professional users such as several radio stations. As a first applicant, it was successfully used to transmit music reliably via ISD and between broadcasting studios. The evolution from Aspect to the final mp3, MPEG-1 or Layer 3, codec included some technological harmonizations with the other planned MPEG-1 audio coders such as MPEG-1 Layer 2's polyphase filter bank, and the addition of point stereo coding, which allows the coder to not only perform well on monophonic signals but also efficiently handle stereo material. The latter was developed by Jürgen Herr for MP3.
In 1992, the Moving Picture Expert Group, or MPEG, the ISO, International Organizations of Standardization, working group charged with developing compressed digital audio and video standards, concludes at first compression and standard called MPEG-1 for use in video CDs or CD1. Layer 3 is a more efficient codec and leads to its widespread adoption as a way to store music on the relatively small hard disk drives of the era's PCs and to transfer music files over the internet through pokey 28.8 kbps PC modems. And in 1995, MP3 gets its name. In an internal poll, Fraunhofer researchers unanimously vote for MP3 or .mp3 as the file name extension for MPEG Layer 3. MPEG Layer 3 is also selected as the audio format for the World Space Satellite Digital Audio Broadcasting System. In 1998, the era of MP3 portability began with the introduction of Diamond Multimedia's Rio in the US and Sehan Information Systems or MP-MAN in Korea. They are the first headphone stereos that use solid-state flash memory to store and play compressed MP3 music files, either downloaded from the internet or ripped from a music CD. And in 2000, in the US, suppliers launched the first headphone stereos equipped with the hard drivers and the first headphone CD players that play MP3 encoded 5-inch CDs. Since that time, MP3 has become a cultural phenomenon, with hundreds of millions of computers and consumer electronic devices sold that include MP3 capability. The MP3 file structure. An MP3 file is made up of frames, which consists of a header and a data block. This sequence of frames is called an elementary stream. The MP3 data blocks contain the compressed audio information in terms of frequencies and amplitudes. As you can see, this is the block diagram of the MP3. As you can see, this is the header part and this is the data part. This is where the MP3 or CD readers can read the MP3 header and then they will rip the data off so that the music can be heard. The bitrate. Several bit rates are specified in the MPEG-1 audio layer 3 standard. 32-bit, 40-bit, 48, 56, 64, 80, 96, 112, 128, 160, 192, 224, 256, and 320 kilobyte per second, with available sampling frequencies of 32,400 of 32 and 44.1 and 48 kilohertz. While the MPEG-2 audio layer 3 allows bit rates of 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 80, 96, 112, 128, 144, and 160 kilobytes per second, with sampling frequencies of 66, 22.05, and 24 kilohertz. Lastly, the MPEG 2.5 audio layer 3 is restricted to bit rates of 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, and 64 kilobytes per second, with sampling frequencies of 8, 11.025, and 12 kilohertz. A sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz is almost always used because this is also used for CD audio, the main source used for creating mp3 files. A greater variety of bit rates are used on the internet. As internet bandwidth availability and hard drive sizes have increased, higher bit rates up to 320 kilobits per second are widespread. And lastly, the internet distribution. In the second half of the 90s, mp3 files began to spread on the internet. The popularity of mp3s began to rise rapidly with the advent of Nalsoft's audio player called Winamp. It was released in 1997. And in 1998, the first portable solid-state digital audio player, or MP-Man, developed by the Sehan Information Systems, which is headquarters in Seoul, South Korea, was released, and the Rio PM300 was sold afterwards in 1998. And in November 1997, the website mp3.com was offering thousands of mp3s created by independent artists for free. The small size of mp3 files enabled widespread peer-to-peer file sharing of music ripped from CDs, which would have previously been nearly impossible. The first large peer-to-peer file sharing network, Napster, was launched in 1999. The conclusion of mp3 was simply, it is a type of compression that compresses audio from big sizes to small sizes so that it can fit into CD players or in CDs.